Hey guys, it's Tim Miller from The Bulwark. I want to talk to you about a couple races in the Deep South that Democrats might actually be able to win. So here's the deal. We're in an off year where there are 3 governor's races that happen in my home state, where I'm in right now, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Kentucky. Obviously, red states. Donald Trump won all of them overwhelmingly. Here in Louisiana, we have what's called a jungle primary, where everybody runs in the first round of elections in October, and then if nobody gets 50%, the top 2 candidates go on to the November election. Well, here in Louisiana, the Republican has already won before the November election day because he got over 50% in the first round. But in Mississippi and Kentucky, we have right now in Kentucky, the Democrat Andy Beshear, the incumbent governor, is winning right now in the polls. If you just check out these polls right now, he's winning in all the polls. And you have Brandon Presley, cousin of Elvis, in Mississippi, who is a challenger to incumbent Republican Governor Tate Reeves. He's losing very narrowly. The most recent poll had him down just 1 point. And so I did an interview with Brandon Presley for The Bulwark. You can check that out right there. And super interesting guy. Sarah is doing some focus groups. I want you to come back and check out the focus groups this weekend in Kentucky, where we hear from voters about the Andy Beshear, Daniel Cameron race, Andy Beshear being the Democratic incumbent. And there are some clear takeaways here. Number one, Democrats really can win these races. They really can. This is not a pipe dream. This is not a Jamie Harrison versus Lindsey Graham situation, okay? These are winnable races. And the things that Beshear and Presley have done in different ways, I think, offer models for Democrats who just, face planted here in Louisiana, for example. On Presley first, since I already talked to him, he's run it as like an old school, populist, culturally conservative Democrat. Now, these people you think are extinct if you're just watching the national news, all right? But actually, there's a decent amount of Democrats who identify as pro-life. You just never see them on TV, right? Because there aren't any of them in New York City. But there are quite a few out in the rest of America. And these folks aren't represented. And for some reason, the Democrats haven't been putting up a lot of candidates that speak to that constituency. Well, Brandon Presley is one of those candidates. He's running in Mississippi. He says that he is pro-life from the womb to the tomb. When I interviewed him, he said a big contrast with him and Tate Reeves is that in Mississippi, he has horrible hospital care. He hasn't expanded Medicaid. There are no pediatricians in the Mississippi Delta, basically. It's impossible for people to get care. The one line he used that I liked was, Tate Reeves might be pro-life, but he's anti-living. And I think that's right. He called himself a Merle Haggard Democrat and also contrasted himself with the National Party Democrats on issues like trans rights as well, and even on some economic issues where he's made a central part of his campaign cutting regressive taxes like those on the grocery tax. So, tax cutting traditionally a coded Republican issue, though a lot of Democrats are opposed to regressive taxes like the grocery tax. So Presley is out there running as this populist Democrat, better health care, better government services, more money in your pocket, but also not as a scary national progressive, who has left-wing cultural views. He sounds the part. He looks the part. Just watch a little bit of his introduction video just to get a sense of Brandon Presley.
Folks who grew up the way I grew up don't get a chance to run for governor. My daddy was murdered the first day I was in the 3rd grade, and my mother was a widow and a single parent that struggled every single day just to pay the bills. I understand where working people are in Mississippi. Everybody cannot be born rich and lucky, and that's why you need a governor that'll stand up for the people of Mississippi.
You just by the sound of it, just by the vibe, the look and feel, like this is a guy that feels different, feels like Mississippi. It's still Mississippi. He's benefited from the fact that Tate Reeves has gotten involved in this huge corruption scandal, which has made a lot of news, actually, because Brett Favre is wrapped up in it, and the old WWE wrestler, the $1 Million Man, is wrapped up in it. It's a welfare scandal where money that was supposed to be going to the poorest Mississippians was being redirected to rich people with access to these nonprofits that went to pay for things like Brett Favre's kids' volleyball stadium or the volleyball stadium at Brett Favre's kids' school. Crazy stuff. And here's, Republicans might not be the biggest fans of welfare, but they're also not big fans of government welfare being transferred from poor people to rich people who don't need the money. I think that is something that has made the Mississippi race unique. Over in Kentucky, Andy Beshear is the governor, and he is not quite as culturally conservative as Presley is. He's cut more of a middle ground on abortion, for example, but with certain restrictions, not not going to the far left on that issue either. But he's focused on economic development. One thing Sarah noticed in the focus groups was that people in Kentucky talking about the governor call him Andy. He's from a family lineage, so that makes him a unique candidate. There have been other Bashirs who have, been politicians in the state, so it's a family dynasty. So there are some kind of old school ties there. But also, this is a person that has just been focused on local issues, talking to voters about things they care about, being a regular person, not getting wrapped up in the national polarized, political bullshit. And like, this used to be the common way to do politics. And the old phrase from Tip O'Neill was all politics is local. And like, that's gone away because of social media and partisan media and just the way that these elections have been nationalized. But that doesn't mean that localizing them can't work in certain circumstances. And I think that if you compare that to what happened here in Louisiana, where we ran a conventional Democrat, seems like a good guy. But he didn't offer anything different from what you might think a national Democrat would offer. That's not going to work in Louisiana, Kentucky, or Mississippi. And I think that if centrists want to have candidates that represent them, you have to go out there and recruit and find people like Andy Beshear, people like Brandon Presley, who can be a fit for the state that they're running in, and run a campaign that is more narrowly tailored to the place where they're trying to get elected. And this seems like common sense. It seems obvious, but we've seen both parties move away from it in a big way. And I mean, compared to the Republican Party, for example, they used to be really good at this, running blue state Republican governors. They're all my favorite types of governors: Charlie Baker, Larry Hogan. But recently, moderate Republicans who go against Trump have been getting killed in blue state primaries. So these Republican moderates that used to run in blue states are becoming extinct. I'm hoping that we can see some of a realignment where the center expands in the Democratic Party, and we can see more people like Andy Beshear and Brandon Presley, representing voters in the center running through the Democratic primary. Since as long as Trump is around, that's a DOA strategy over on the Republican side. Those elections are coming up on November 7th on Tuesday. You can expect more coverage of that from the Bulwark. Look, if you're looking for no bullshit political coverage that just tells you what's happening, that can just be honest with you. If a Democrat's running a bad campaign, if a Democrat's running a good campaign, if a Republican's running a bad campaign, if a Republican's running a good campaign. A lot of the national media, they have sources. They're addicted to the horse race coverage. They want things to be closer than they are. We're not going to give you that. If it turns out that this Mississippi race, doesn't end up being as close as it might look right now, we're going to be the first ones to tell you. So if you're looking for reliable political coverage, make sure you subscribe here to the Bulwark YouTube. We'll be back with more on this next Tuesday, and be keeping an eye on the rest of the news this week. Also, make sure full Next Level podcast episode. JVL, Sarah, Tim, tonight, Wednesday, on the Bulwark YouTube. Don't miss it. Peace.